Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayet Srinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punyashravana Kirtana Yadhyantastha Yabatrani Vidhanoti Shruhitsatam Rashtraprayeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 23, title Maharaja Prithu's Going Back Home. Tam Sarvaguna Vinyasam Jive Maya Nyadha Tam Chanush Matma Sthams Savanush Yai Puman Yana Vairagya Viryena Swarupastho Jahat Prabhu. Synonyms. Tam, unto him, Sarvagund Vinyasam, the reservoir of all qualities. Jive, unto the designations. Maya Maye, the reservoir of all potencies. Nyadhat, placed. Tam, that. Cha, also. Anushayam, designation. Atmastham, situated in self-realization. So, he. Anusai, living entity. Uman, the enjoyer. Jnana, knowledge. Vairagya, renunciation. Viryena, by the prowess of. Varupastha, being situated in one's constitutional position. Ajahat, returned home. Prabhu, the controller. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prithu Maharaj then offered the total designation of the living entity into the supreme controller of illusory energy. Being released from all the designations by which the living entity became entrapped, he became free by knowledge and renunciation and by the spiritual force of his devotional service. In this way, being situated in his original constitutional position of Krishna consciousness, he gave up his body as a Prabhu or controller of the senses. Purport: as stated in the Vedas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the source of material energy. Consequently, he is sometimes called Maya May, or the Supreme Person who can create his pastimes through his potency known as the material energy. The jiva, or the individual living entity, becomes entrapped by the material energy by the supreme will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, we understand Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hitadeshe Arjun Tisthati Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Yantrarudhani Mayaya. Ishvara, Supreme Personality of Godhead, is situated within the heart of all conditioned souls, and by his supreme will, the living entity or individual soul gets the facility to lord it over material nature in various types of bodies, which are known as yantra, or the moving vehicle offered by the total material energy, Maya. Although the individual living entity, Jiva, and the Lord are both situated within the material energy, the Lord is directing the movements of the Jiva soul by offering him different types of bodies through the material energy, and thus the living entity is wandering throughout the universes in various forms of body and becomes implicated in different situations, partaking of the reactions of fruitive activities. When Prithu Maharaj became spiritually powerful by the enhancement of his spiritual knowledge, jnana, and renunciation of material desires, He became a Prabhu or master of his senses, sometimes called Goswami or Swami. This means that he was no longer controlled by the influence of material energy. When one is strong enough to give up the influence of material energy, he is called Prabhu. In this verse, the word Swarupastha is also very significant. The real identity of the individual soul lies in understanding or attaining the knowledge that he is eternally a servant of Krishna. This understanding is called Swarupoplabdhi. By culturing devotional service, the devotee gradually comes to understand his actual relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This understanding of one's pure spiritual position is called Swarupalabdhi. Swarupopalabdhi. When one attains that stage, he can understand how he is related with the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a servant or friend or as a parent or conjugal lover. This stage of understanding is called Swarupastha. Prithu Maharaj realized this Swarup completely, and it will be clear in the later verses that he personally left this world or this body by riding on a chariot sent from Vaikuntha. In this verse, the word Prabhu is also significant. As stated before, when one is completely self realized and acts according to that position, he can be called Prabhu. The spiritual master is addressed as Prabhupada because he is a completely self realized soul. The word Pad means position, and Prabhupada indicates that he is given the position of Prabhu or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for he acts on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless one is a Prabhu or controller of the senses, he cannot act as spiritual master who is authorized by the Supreme Prabhu or Lord Krishna. In these verses, in his verses praising the spiritual master, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, Sakshat Haritve Samasta Shastre Uktas Tatha Bhav Yada Eva Sadbhi. The spiritual master is honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. Thus, Prithu Maharaj can also be called Prabhupada or as described here in Prabhu. Another question may be raised in this connection. Since Prithu Maharaj was a power incarnation or Shaktya Avatar of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Saktya Avatar, why did he have to execute the regulative principles in order to become a Prabhu? Because he appeared on this earth as an ideal king, and because it is the duty of the king to instruct the citizens in the execution of devotional service, he followed all the regulative principles of devotional service in order to teach others. Similarly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, although Krishna himself taught us how to approach Krishna as a devotee, it is said, Apani Achari Bhakti Sikhai no Savari. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed others in the process of devotional service by setting the example himself through his own personal actions. Similarly, Prithu Maharaj, although a Satyavaisha Avatara incarnation, still behaved exactly as a devotee in order to achieve the position of Prabhu. Furthermore, Swarupastha means complete liberation, as it is said in Bhagavatam, Canto 2, 10th chapter, 6th verse, Itvan yatha rupam swarupena vyavasthithi. When a living entity abandons the activities of Maya and attains the position from which he can execute devotional service, his state is called Swarupastha or complete liberation. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिते नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त। So this verse and these last few verses, wherein is described how Prithu Maharaj, a Shakti Avesh avatar of the Supreme Personality, although functioning as a ruler of the world, emperor of the world, how such a empowered personality gives up the body. So this kind of reminds me, because I was watching the video of Srila Prabhupada, the last instructions, and how he left his body. And now that we are reading this part, and I can see the similarities when Srila Prabhupada left his body and when Prithu Maharaj is described as having, leaving this body. Prabhupada, like almost 6 months before he left his body, he stopped eating everything solid. He was on some fruit juice or something like that, liquid diet. Then he gave up all the energy diets, everything. He was only on water, tulsi leaves and water. And even at the last moment, he was instructing his disciples, still translating, still quoting a verse and translating that verse. One would like to think that, or why was he not thinking? But his life is all about Krishna. So here also we see Prithu Maharaj, after having given up, how he goes to the vana or forest and starts to dedicate himself to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we see Prabhupada in Vrindavan giving up his body, just like that. So where Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also mentioned that whenever we mention here vana sometimes, it is meant Vrindavan. So people go to Vrindavan even now, even though now it has become concrete jungle as opposed to the vana that it's supposed to be. But people are going there to give up their body, or somebody is just going there because they heard Vrindavan as being a place where Krishna enacted his pastimes, Krishna descended, Krishna is still there. So on and so forth. However, when we are discussing here this matter, the Maharaj Prithu then offered the total designation of the living entity. The first thing that we realize that we are this living entity because of the symptoms. But the other thing is to realize that living entity is the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jiver Swarup hoy Krishner Nitya Das. So he offered the living entity unto the supreme controller of illusory energy. And who is the supreme controller of the illusory energy? The Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. So being released from all the designations by which the living entity became entrapped. How does the living entity become entrapped? When we are in this material world, how are we entrapped? By the illusory energy of the material nature. So we perform, we earn money, we raise family. So those are all on the platform of illusory energy because we developed a relationship with the illusory energy. And at some stage, that relationship becomes so strong that it becomes almost difficult or impossible sometimes to give up that connection with the illusory energy. But here Maharaj Prithu very easily gave up that connection with the illusory energy. With who? To the master. Just like a master is standing next to you and a living entity is free from all designations, is offering obeisances, is conducting himself in relationship with now instead of the illusory energy, with the master of the illusory energy. And those who are into different rasas, except for the Shanta rasa, can then understand. Prabhupada used the word Swarupa Pulabdhi, their own. Swarupa Pulabdhi means their own rasa, in which one of those five primary rasas in which we relate to Krishna, as in Vatsalya or in uh, Sakhya, Dasya, Madhurya. So, in any of those rasa or platform that has been our goal during the process of bhakti that we have been conducting during the chanting of the holy name, Navada Bhakti, or the 64 components of the bhakti. So we are constantly evolving ourselves in one or the other kind of a rasa. So if we reach the topmost form, which is Madhurya rasa, then the other rasas automatically are present within you. Because the evolutionary process is it starts from Shanta, then it moves to Dasya, then it moves to Sakhya, then it moves to Vatsalya, then it moves to Madhurya. So that's how the progression. But once you have reached the Madhurya, you can go down to any of the other four kinds and relate. So here, when you are giving up your body as you have amalgamated all the parts, the earth with the earth, the fire with the fire, totality of fire, the water with the totality of water, and sky with the totality of the sky. So what is remaining then? The only the living force, living entity. And in your original pure spiritual form, you are able to see the Lord face to face and render service and and understand that that situation which is that of a servant of the Lord and that particular rasa, as Prabhupada mentioned in Swarupa Upalabdhi, one of those rasas to relate, to render service in that particular rasa to the Lord. And as it is mentioned that a chariot descended from Vaikuntha Lok to take Prithu Maharaj. So such a glorious, glorious way to give up one's one's life or one's connection, rather, I would say, with the illusory energy and and attaining one's swarup, and moving on to the spiritual abode of Sri Krishna to render further service. So when Krishna also, Prabhupada mentions, so when Krishna also sometimes comes, he brings, so such empowered personalities They are already Swarup Siddha. They are all Nitya Siddha personalities that descend. Other ordinary people that when they come, they are all Nitya Baddha. They are already eternally under the influence of the material energy. Those who are Nitya Siddha, Nitya Mukta, they are, although seemingly conducting themselves within the world, all the material affairs, but they are not attached. So, just like, as Bhagavad Gita mentioned, just like a, a lotus flower, even though living in the water, is above the water and water is not touching it. So, Padmapatram Ivambhasa. So, that's how we have to live in the world, but not belong to the world. We should belong to the Supreme Lord, whom we are servant of eternally. We have to revive that consciousness by the process of rendering service to the Lord or devotional service. Hare Krishna, Krishna